Okay. So I'm Kelly Gill, and I'll be interviewing my grandmom, Elizabeth Gill O'Brien. Okay. So I'm going to be interviewing about her brother, Jack. So how many siblings did you have growing up?
I had 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, but my cousin Maureen came to live with us when she was an infant. Her mother died when she was born, and she lived with us till she was married and moved to Texas.
Okay. What was your brother Jack like before the war, and were you close? Like, how different in age?
Well, he was second to me. He was 2 years older than I, and he was very witty. He was funny, often like your father in many ways. Good looking, and he graduated from North Catholic, the same school that your father graduated from. And I can't remember what job he had actually after he graduated from high school, but when he was a teenager, we had a corner store, a grocery store in the corner, and he worked for them. And when he died, Rose, the name Jewish Rose, was a wonderful neighbor. I think she hurt as much as we did.
So, like, the whole neighborhood liked him, and everybody was really close?
They were very close. His best friend lived next door.
Yeah. So he did go to school and he did work. Like, did he have any special talents?
Just that he was funny.
Mm-hmm.
He was just fun to be with. He loved the movies, and when he would go to the movies, he would come back, and he would stand in this doorway and reenact the entire movie. I can remember specifically it was Arsenic and Old Lace, and one of those things, and you just felt like you didn't have to go to the movies because he did such an entertaining job.
How much were movies then compared to now?
The cheapest I remember was 11 cents, and that was for a matinee.
Wow, that's better than the $20.
And now I don't think they even sold candy, or I think they may have sold popcorn, but that's about it. So you could go and spend the whole day.
What was life like before the Korean War in general?
I look back and think, didn't even realize I had a happy childhood, because I thought everybody's life was like mine. I had a happy childhood. We were friends. We didn't fight. He was a tease, though. He would tease you crazy. And I was, because I was younger, I was often the blunt of his teasing. But it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
He was funny and fun to be with.
So, like, the area was good and school was good, so it's like...
Yeah, he did. I think he enjoyed school and he enjoyed his friends. And they were all drafted together.
But he was drafted?
He was drafted, and everybody went. My older brother, Frank, went to Germany, and he went to Korea.
Okay, so how did he feel about being drafted?
I think nobody wanted to be drafted.
Yeah. So
but you had no choice.
Did he have any other plans other than being drafted? Did he have future plans, or
I think he was going to go back to school.
Yeah. So how old was he when he was drafted?
He was 21. And my other brother was 23.
While he was away, did he ever write to you?
Oh, we wrote back and forth all the time and send bundles of goodies. And afterwards, we still, even though he was missing in action, we were foolish. We just wanted them to be alive, and we would still write to him and send packages. And the next thing, they were all coming back in the mail.
Yeah. So, like, how did you know that he was, like, missing, or... like, when did you figure it out?
I was in Glenside. My cousins were getting married, and I went up to stay there to go to the wedding a couple days later. And my aunt came up. We were in the bedroom getting dressed to go someplace else, my cousin and I. And my aunt came in, and she said, that your brother was missing in action. And I can remember I had money in my pocketbook and ran over to church and had masses said for him. I'm going to cry. And then I don't remember how I got home, but somebody drove me home. But my mother and father got a telegram. That's how they found out that he was missing in action. And he was missing, they found out that he was missing in action July 11th, and they got the information July 18th. They got the telegram July 18th.
Okay. And then how long was it before you learned that he had passed?
It was the following, around the Easter holidays, but I can't remember exactly when it was. It was just that they had just, found his body.
Yeah, so was it like about a year after?
It was getting close to a year, yeah. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they sent it over a telegram, or like how did you figure out all this
I
information?
don't, well, I'm sure we were notified. I do not remember whether it was a telegram or not, because I was out working
Yeah.
and back and forth, and we just found out. And then they sent his body home. Of course, he was in a closed casket.
Mm-hmm.
But there were no military. My mother didn't want anything military.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 19.
19. Like how was his service, and was it at the
His holy name, it was mass, but I said there was nothing military because we wanted
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
He was not an intentional soldier. It was
Mm-hmm.
because everybody was being drafted for the Korean War.
And like, was it a big service, a large service?
It was
or?
regular. They used to call them high masses in those days. It would be 3 priests on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And because we were, and my mother and my father were active in the church, there were a lot of priests on the altar, and
Yeah.
of course a lot of people.
I was to say, because like I know that you guys are really familiar in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
so it must have been like a lot of people, or at least a lot of friends. How did like the family react, your family, and you react or take the whole situation in?
I think the worst part about was not knowing whether he was a prisoner of war or whether he was wounded. My mother always thought that he probably was a quadruple amputee, and he didn't want anybody to know about it. She was sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
Was all the things. Oh, we prayed. I always say about everybody who gets older has tragedy. They're like, that's the worst thing that ever happened, because when you're with a loved one and they're dying and you're with them, but you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's the unknown that's so horrible. I said, it's 1953 and I'm still crying.
Do you want a tissue?
So, I told her when you said the interview, I told you I was going to cry.
Sorry. And how did your mom, great-grandmom, take the whole? What did she?
It was, I said it was
Kind of
not
universal
knowing.
pain.
I mean, I think it was bad enough, but I mean, I think if we had known immediately, because after the war was over, he was still missing in action. And after the 10 o'clock or the 11 o'clock news, then they would start releasing the prisoners of war. You stayed up every night hoping against hope that he was a prisoner of war.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he wasn't, but you just think, please, even if he doesn't remember, please, or whatever. And you just
have
you
his
just
name on the
hope.
screen,
It was always hope.
Yeah. And like, it was just, I guess, a universal tragedy. Like, it wasn't more guilt or blame on one family member, or there wasn't more hurt.
Oh
It was
no,
just-
I mean, it was a tragedy for all. And
Yeah.
at the end, there were times during that period before the war was over, that a lot of men that he went away with, that we knew them by name,
Yeah.
that they were killed. And my mother wouldn't go to the funerals. I went with my father to all the funerals.
Yeah, I was going to ask if a lot of his friends were around, or if you knew,
Yeah.
were there a lot of people in the neighborhood who were drafted or went?
Oh, everybody in the neighborhood was drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody from that age group was drafted. And the ones that we went to the funeral, we knew their names because when he'd come home on a furlough, he would talk about the people that, the names, and then we would hear from the grapevine that they had died, had been killed. And so we felt that we had to, but my mother couldn't deal with it, so I went with my father.
Yeah. Like, currently, how do you feel about the whole situation? Like, it's still upsetting, obviously, but is there any other, like, are you bitter, or...
To me, it was like every war since the Second World War, what was the point of it?
Mm-hmm.
Why were we in Korea? Why were we in Vietnam? Why were we in Iraq? Why were we in any of those places? I have no idea, except to kill, as Winston Churchill said, he said the flower of English manhood. I'm saying the flower of American manhood.
Mm-hmm. And then how is life now compared to then?
Oh, I've had a lot of things happen to me, but I'm basically a happy person.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, my sister and I still can cry over it.
Yeah, still, like, just like it happened yesterday.
And mostly because of the time period of not knowing.
Yeah, so it's the unknown, that's the worst
It's
part.
the unknown factor is really the worst part. And seeing your parents suffer.
Yeah.
And your siblings suffer. It's part of that. I remember we gave up candy. We gave it was like Lent. Well, if we give up candy, maybe I'll be a prisoner of war. If we give up anything sweet, if we don't eat this, if we go to mass every day, nothing worked. He was dead. You know.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
No.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. You've seen his picture upstairs.
Yeah, I'll probably include it in the video.
Yeah.
So thanks.